Okay, it's Dennis Lindsay. We are recording now. With Corcoran Global Living, I'm here with Kyle Rush from Guild Mortgage in Carson City with your Mortgage Monthly. So Kyle, we had talked last week about offers and prices going over asking and waivers being put in place and things not being, inspections being waived and all that good stuff. So one of the things that we saw and you and I were talking about, which I thought would be a good topic for everybody this month, would be the waivers of appraisals. Are you seeing that? And what can you tell me what that's all about?
Yeah, absolutely, Dennis. So on the lending side of this, we see appraisal waivers in two contexts, and it's important to delineate these two. The first one is contractually, right? So when you're drawing up the contract with your client, we are seeing realtors and buyers waive the results of that appraisal, meaning that they're not going to determine their ability to purchase the home based on that appraisal. So essentially that contingency that they're waiving in the contract allows them to get out of the contract by having a low value in the appraisal. So if they waive that, they stand to lose their earnest money deposit if they don't complete that transaction, but it also doesn't hinge their transaction then on the value of the home. Now, that's very important to understand that difference versus on the loan side, more often than not, we are going to require an appraisal. We did have a period of time where we saw a lot of appraisal waivers coming out from the lending side of things. And that was based on, think of it this way, every time a home is bought or refinanced, an appraisal is typically done on that. And that appraisal gets logged into a database for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which allows for a very robust valuation tool for properties. If that property pings in Fannie Mae's database when I'm running my automated underwriting, then we stand a fairly reasonable chance to have no appraisal required to deliver that loan. Now, these are two very different things, right? Because as a lender, more often than not, we are going to need an appraisal. Those appraisal waivers picked up for a period of time, and now we've seen very few of them. The reason we're seeing very few right now is Fannie Mae's engine behind these appraised values is not able to account for how quickly the values are moving up right now. So the benefit of us seeing these appraisal waivers in the past was because Fannie Mae was able to analyze that value and see a sustainable growth and a reasonable purchase price based on activity in or around that home. So there's two completely different things here. And I think that, how do I feel about it? As a buyer, you should always do what it takes to protect your interest in acquiring that home. But you have to also mitigate that with what's going on in our market. And our market is, I don't know if this is an exact statistic, but we're probably seeing a 5 to 10% overbidding on properties right now.
Definitely. Yeah. Now, what would happen if I had a buyer that came in, let's say, on a $500,000 purchase and they had 50% down? Would they still require an appraisal, do you think? Or
so we would still in all likelihood require one as the lender. And the challenge for us is we can't speak to whether or not the appraisal is going to be waived at the point of you writing the contract, because we won't know until we actually apply that address to that buyer and run the automated underwriting. Now, that's important to understand, because as soon as we do that, we create an audit step for that buyer on that address, which means now that loan number is tied to that address. So we really can't run this until the buyer is in contract. Otherwise, we've got to start over on their loan completely, because they're not actually going to be buying that address. So a lot of the lender decision to waive an appraisal has everything to do with Fannie Mae's position on sustainable growth and values and a very quality buyer too.
Okay. Have you ever has your firm ever waived any, or the lender ever waived any?
Yeah, I would say that we early 2020 to mid 2020, we were probably seeing upwards of 30% of our files with appraisal waivers. The problem was mid 2020, during this pandemic, values have skyrocketed, and I think that system is no longer capable of iterating that's a sustainable growth, right? It's sort of it's very hard to keep up with the growth right now. I was just talking with an agent earlier today, and they're worried about the appraisal on the home that they're selling. The best thing I can recommend to anybody who's worried about that value is to do your comparable research and then try to make sure that the appraiser comes out to the property after your comparables have closed the date of the inspection by the appraiser is the cutoff point for comparables. So if you have a home that's closing next week and your appraiser's out there today, that home that's closing next week will have no bearing on the appraisal.
Wow. Okay, great. So talk to me before we hang up, talk to me about interest rates between last month and this month.
Yeah, interest rates have actually kind of been a little stable for the last few weeks. You'll hear the media say that rates went down, but that's probably because they went up the day before. In other words, the media is very good at capturing small incremental movements and creating a bigger frenzy out of what's pretty minimal. So right now, the markets, we've seen a large increase in interest rates from January through now. And right now we're kind of sitting stable with interest rates. Dennis, I did want to mention one other thing on those appraisals. Your hypothetical of the 50% down buyer, right?
Yeah.
That buyer, what if that appraisal comes in low? How much does it impact their eligibility, right? They could still afford the home because we're still talking the same loan amount that we qualified that borrower on. What happens though is they've got to understand that different loan to values can change the interest rate. So if that appraisal comes in low, it could change their interest rate, but they can also pay more than that house is worth and still buy it. They just have to be comfortable with that.
Okay. Okay, good. Good explanation. Okay, well, we'll get together. I know you and I will be talking throughout the month. How does anybody get a hold of you?
My name's Kyle Rush. I'm with Guild Mortgage. You can call me directly at 775-885-6892.
Awesome. All right, Kyle. I'll talk to you
Dennis.
probably in the
Talk to
next
you later,
couple of
bud.
days or so. All right. Thanks, Kyle. Bye-bye.